Okay, we're here with our student Rita, and we're going to talk about the nuts and bolts of actually using scientific notation to do things like multiply and divide. Ready to go, Rita?
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about multiplying first. So let's do a quick review of scientific notation now. So here's a really big number. Scientific notation can write this in a much simpler way. We find a number between or greater than or equal to 1, and in this case it's going to be 1.1, and then we multiply it by some sort of power of 10. And in this case you could count up all the times that that decimal place moves to here, and if you did that, you would figure out that that's 9 times. So this number right up here is the same thing as 1.1 times 10 to the 9th. That's review. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, let's talk about when we multiply numbers that are in this scientific notation form, okay? So, here's all our steps to prove that it's actually 9 steps. So let's try this problem. Here we take that number, 1.1 times 10 to the 9th, and instead of writing out all this, we just write out this. And let's say we were going to multiply it by 4.2 times 10 to the 3rd, another scientific notation number, okay?
Okay.
All right, so the great thing about this is that you can separate it into parts. You can multiply the 1.1 and the 4.2 by each other, okay? You'll use a calculator for that. And then you can take the 10 to the 9th and the 10 to the 3rd, and you can multiply them. And you can do that in your head because you're just adding exponents, right? So you do this in 2 parts. Okay, so if we use a calculator for the first part, 1.1 times 4.2, you could also do this by hand. That's pretty easy, 4.62 times, and then let's do this right here. 10 to the 9th times 10 to the 3rd, you're going to add the exponents. What will that be? 10 to the what?
10 to the 12th.
Good. So there's your answer right there. Okay? Makes it really easy to work with really big numbers and not have to enter all those zeros into your calculator or anything like that. Let's try another problem here. Okay. So now we're going to take that same number, 1.1 times 10 to the 9th that we were using before, and now we're going to multiply it by a different number, 9.2 times 10 to the negative 4th. This is going to cause us to run into a couple of new things, and we'll tackle them, all right?
Okay.
So same thing, though. We're going to take that 1.1, and we're going to multiply it by the 9.2. Do that on a calculator to get 10.12. And then we're going to multiply, and then that's going to be times, and then what's 10 to the 9th times 10 to the negative 4th? We add those exponents. So what's 9 plus a negative 4?
5.
Good. So this is going to be times 10 to the 5th power. Okay?
Okay.
Now, you should see an uh-oh there. What's wrong with this as far as scientific notation goes?
Oh, 10.12 is greater than 10.
Right. And when we do scientific notation, it has to be a number that's greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. So we somehow have to convert this to scientific notation. It's not in scientific notation yet. So if we were to take this first part, though, and if we were to divide it by 10, in other words, move the decimal place 1 to the left, then that would be 1.012. That would work, right?
Right.
But we can't just divide something by 10 and keep it equal unless we also do the opposite and multiply this over here by 10. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So if this is divided by 10, we already said that that's going to be 1.012. If this is multiplied by 10, or 10 to the 1st, and you can add the exponents, what will that be?
10 to the 6th.
Yeah, exactly. So what we do is we got to a number that wasn't in scientific notation, but then we can quickly put it into scientific notation just by kind of converting the first number and then correspondingly doing the right thing to the power of 10.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, now let's go over here and do a little bit of dividing. Okay, here is, oh, yes, we want to put a smiley face there because it's important that that's in scientific notation. Okay, so let's do our first problem here in dividing. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 2.4 times 10 to the 6th divided by 1.2 times 10 to the 2nd. Now, dividing is the same as a fraction. And for me, with scientific notation, it makes it a lot easier to write this as a fraction. Okay?
Yeah.
And then same thing, you can do it in parts. So we're going to do the initial part of the scientific notation, and then we're going to do the powers of 10. And that's one of the things that makes scientific notation so great. So 2.4 divided by 1.2, you might be able to do that in your head because it's kind of like 24 divided by 12. What would that be?
2.
Yep, that's 2. So our answer is going to be equals 2 times, and then with the exponents here, you're now dividing, so you're going to subtract. So what's the power of 10 going to be?
10 to the 4th.
Yep. So this really complicated problem up here, because we're using scientific notation, turns into this really simple answer here. Okay, now let's try a little bit harder problem here. We have 1.8 times 10 to the 12th divided by, or over, 6 times 10 to the 5th. So we're going to do it in parts again. What's 1.8 divided by 6? It's kind of like 18 divided by 6, but...
0.3?
Yeah, instead of 3, which would be 18 divided by 6, it's 0.3 because it's 1.8 divided by 6. So it's going to be 0.3 times, and then remember we're dividing here, so we're going to subtract exponents. What should the power of 10 be?
10 to the 7th.
7th, which is 12 minus 5, right? So this is 0.3 times 10 to the 7th. Uh-oh, got another problem here, right? Because this number isn't correct. Why isn't it correct?
It's not greater than or equal to 1.
Right. So if we were going to move the decimal place to make this greater than or equal to 1, would we move it to the right or the left?
The right.
The right. How many times?
1 time.
1 time, because then it'll get it to 3, and that's what we want. If we moved it another time, it'd be 30. That'd be greater than 10. So to move it to the right 1 time, we want to just multiply that by 10.
Right.
But we can't just willy-nilly multiply one part without compensating on the other side. So this one over here, we have to divide by 10. Okay? So when we multiply this by 10, we already said what that's going to be. What is that going to be?
3.
3. Okay, so we're going to have 3 times some power of 10. Now here we're going to divide by just 10. So 10 to the 7th divided by 10, or 10 to the 7th over 10 to the 1, what will that be?
10 to the 6th.
10 to the 6th. So here we had an answer, but it wasn't quite in scientific notation. It's correct. It's the right number, but it's just not in scientific notation. We convert it really quickly to scientific notation here. Okay? And that looks good. It looks like it's in scientific notation. So you get how to multiply and divide, and then if you need to adjust the number in order to make sure it's in scientific notation.
Yeah.
Okay, great job.
All right.